All right, so are you ready for this? We're diving into Meditating Medium, the book by Benjamin Foster,
Oh,
and
this
this
one is wild.
it is, and it's all about his, well, spiritual awakening. But he starts off like in a really bad place. He's having these crazy vivid nightmares.
I can only imagine.
I know, right? And they're like bleeding into his everyday life, He's exhausted all the time, just lost.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've noticed that a lot of times when people are feeling that way, like really uncomfortable or off,
Mm.
it can be what kind of pushes them to start looking for something more spiritually. It's like this weird mix of being scared, but also really wanting something
Like
else.
a wake-up call, right? Like you can't ignore it anymore.
Totally.
So he goes to his family medium, Kayla, to try and get some answers, and that's where things get really interesting. But before we get into all that, I'm kind of curious. Do you think everyone can have these kinds of spiritual experiences, or is it something you're born with?
Oh, wow. That's a huge question. I mean, people have been debating that forever. Some people definitely seem to be more naturally inclined towards it. But I do think a lot of people believe that we all have some spiritual abilities just hidden that we can develop if we want to through meditation, energy work, that kind of thing. And Benjamin's story definitely seems to back that up.
Okay, so let's talk about his first meditation. It's intense. He describes this swirling mist in his room, crackling sounds, even time like stopping. Is that like his imagination going wild?
Well, meditation has been shown to change brainwave activity. And that can totally lead to, different perceptions and awareness. So it could be that what he's describing is a glimpse into another level of reality, one that our normal senses usually block out.
And then he says the mist forms a ring, like a portal, right at the foot of his bed. I would have been
Yeah,
terrified.
me too.
Did he ever say what he thought it was?
He doesn't really, which makes it even creepier. Makes you wonder, what if he had walked through it? Could it have been a gateway to another dimension or some other state of consciousness? Who knows?
That's like seriously freaky. And then it gets even weirder. He suddenly feels this rush of energy, tingling, heat, a pulling sensation. I mean, no wonder he's freaking out.
Yeah, that kind of sudden energy surge is actually pretty common for people who are starting to open up spiritually. It's like their body's being flooded with like a higher vibration that it's not used to.
So what do you do? Can you like control it?
That's where grounding and protection techniques come in. Things like spending time in nature, visualizing roots going down into the earth, or even wearing certain crystals can help to like stabilize your energy field and make those intense feelings more manageable. This is actually something he learns later from his great aunt Gwen. She's kind of like the family spiritual guru.
Right, and we find out that all kinds of sensitivity and spiritual gifts run in his family. Mediums, psychics, the whole bit. Do you think that kind of family history, like, plays a role in someone's spiritual development?
For sure. I mean, our ancestors, their experiences and beliefs can totally shape our own energetic makeup, I think. It's pretty fascinating to see how these patterns show up again and again through generations, even if we're not aware of them.
Okay, so now we're getting to the really spooky part. Benjamin starts seeing spirits. A bald man, a woman with long hair, even his deceased father-in-law, Jeff. Are these hallucinations, or is something else going on?
Well, you have to remember that what we see as real is really shaped by our culture and what we believe. In tons of cultures, talking to spirits is completely normal, expected even. So, I mean, it's easy to brush these experiences off as hallucinations, but there's actually more and more evidence that, like, suggests consciousness might be able to exist outside of our physical bodies.
Okay, so even if you're open to the idea of spirits, how can you be sure you're not just making things up?
That's where getting some kind of confirmation is super important. For Benjamin, the spirits start sending him signs and symbols that mean something to him personally. For example, he starts smelling metal, which reminds him of Jeff, because Jeff worked as a metal polisher for years. And then his car radio changes to Jeff's favorite station, like out of the blue.
And then there's that whole thing with the mirror. He has a dream where Jeff tells him to look in the mirrors, and then he wakes up and finds Jeff's name actually written on a mirror in his house. Come on, that can't just be a coincidence.
Totally. Those little coincidences, they're called synchronicities, and they're often seen as like messages from the spirit world. Like they're trying to get our attention and let us know they're still around.
So are these spirits like guardian angels or what?
The idea of spirit guides comes up in a lot of spiritual traditions. They're seen as these like kind beings that are there to guide and support us through life. In Benjamin's case, it really seems like Jeff is stepping into that role, reassuring him, helping him figure out all these new experiences.
Okay, so this next part is where things get really wild. He meets a unicorn and an angel. bathed in this pure white light, and he's overcome with this feeling of pure love, and he's actually lifted out of his bed.
Whoa.
I know, right?
That sounds like what's called astral travel or an out-of-body experience.
Yeah.
It's this altered state of consciousness where you feel like your awareness is separate from your physical body and can travel to other places, other realms even.
Wait, so he was actually floating?
There are so many stories of people having these kinds of experiences, often during deep meditation or near-death experiences. We don't totally understand it scientifically yet, but there's more and more interest in studying consciousness and how it might be able to go beyond our physical limits.
So crazy. And he freaks out because he's floating, right? But later he says he wishes he had just gone with it, which I thought was interesting. Like, how would you react if you suddenly started floating during meditation?
That's a good question. I think we tend to react with fear when faced with something we don't understand. But what if we could be more curious about it? Be more willing to expand what we think is possible.
Right? Who knows what we might be missing out on by holding on to our limited ideas of reality.
Exactly.
Okay, so Benjamin's having all these crazy experiences, but he still doesn't know what to make of it all. And that's when he decides to look for some guidance and starts exploring the world of mediumship. And that's when he starts giving readings to other people, trying to connect with their loved ones on the other side, which is pretty wild.
It really is. And it seems like he's approaching it all pretty carefully, too, not just diving in head first.
Right. He even says he's not totally comfortable calling himself a medium yet. Like, he doesn't feel like he's earned it. But then he does a reading for Kayla, his family medium, and she's, like, floored. It seems like a real turning point for him. Like, he's finally starting to own his abilities.
It makes sense, you know? I think a lot of us need that validation, especially from people we respect, before we can really believe in ourselves and what we can do, especially with something like this.
Totally. And it's not just about connecting with spirits for him either. He's also starting to pick up on people's energy, giving them advice and helping them make sense of their past. It's like he's tapping into a whole other way of seeing things.
What I find really interesting is that it shows how mediumship isn't just one thing. It's not just about talking to spirits. It's about intuition, empathy, this deeper awareness of energy, like he's connecting with the whole person, seen and unseen.
And this part kind of freaked me out. Remember that dark shadow he saw in his bedroom?
Oh, yeah,
Well, it comes back. It's like it's a reminder that there can be some not so nice energy out there too.
definitely. I think it's a reminder that when we open ourselves up spiritually, we also need to be really careful about our boundaries.
Yeah.
We have to learn to be discerning and not just trust every energy or being that we come across.
And I thought it was so cool how Benjamin handled it. He didn't panic. He actually tried to talk to the shadow, telling it that his house is full of love. It's like he's learning to face these things head on instead of being afraid.
That's such a powerful approach. I think when we project love and light, it can help to shift negative energy or even make those unwanted spiritual interactions go away. Our own energy, the energy we put out, was so important.
Totally. So even though he's dealing with some potentially dark stuff, he's still choosing love?
Yeah, and that's a really good lesson for anyone who's exploring this kind of stuff. Fear just feeds the negativity, while love can actually protect you.
Okay, and get this. The synchronicities just keep happening. He sees this childlike spirit with a yellow aura standing between two trees. And then, right on cue, a sensor light by those same trees turns on, and then a van drives by with science written on the side.
No way. That's incredible.
I know. Like the universe is winking at him.
I love it. I think those synchronicities are like messages.
Yeah.
They're telling us we're on the right track and that we have support on our journey.
Yeah, like a little pat on the back from the cosmos.
Exactly.
But even with all these amazing experiences, he starts to hit a wall. He's feeling drained, burnt out, which, makes sense with everything that's been going on.
It definitely does. And I think it shows just how important it is to take care of ourselves,
Yeah.
Make sure we're integrating all these experiences and not just chasing after the next big thing. It's about finding balance, I think, honoring our well-being on all levels, physical, emotional, mental, spiritual.
So he decides to take a break from meditating and focus on bringing all the spiritual stuff he's learned into his everyday life. And it seems to be working. He says his anger is gone, he's more patient, even his eating habits have changed for the better.
That is so awesome. I think that's what it's all about. When we connect with our true selves, we naturally make choices that are better for us.
Yeah.
It's not even about forcing ourselves. It just becomes more about who we are.
Right. It's like he's becoming a better version of himself. But he still has a lot to learn. So he ends up going to this psychic night at a local pub.
The psychic night at a pub.
Yeah, I know.
Sounds interesting.
Right. You never know where these things will lead you.
Totally.
So he's drawn to this one woman, Jan, and she ends up doing a reading for him. And not only does she confirm his abilities, but she encourages him to, like, really go for it. It's like she sees his potential even more than he does.
I think having a mentor like that can be so powerful, you know? Sometimes we need someone to show us what we can't yet see in ourselves.
She even invites him to this workshop at a spiritualist church, which I thought was cool. Have you ever been to a spiritualist church?
I have, yeah. They're all different. Yeah, some are really traditional, focused on channeling messages from people who've passed. Others, they incorporate different healing practices, explore different spiritual philosophies. But they all try to create a space for people to explore their spirituality and connect with the unseen world.
So Benjamin goes to a service, and it sounds like something straight out of a movie. He's sitting in the back, trying to be all incognito, and this larger-than-life medium walks in, all flustered because he's late.
I can only imagine.
Right. And as he starts doing readings, Benjamin sees this massive wall of mist forming above the stage, like at least 20 feet high.
Whoa, that's intense.
I know, right? It's like this portal is opening up between worlds.
Yeah.
And then the medium turns right to Benjamin and starts telling him about all these spirits he sees around him. His grandfather, William, his great-uncle, Bill, his father, who seems a bit hesitant for some reason, and this other guy named Eric who walks with a cane. He even confirms details about his family history, like their bare-knuckle boxing lineage.
Wow. Those specific details, I think, are so important. They really add to the credibility of the reading. It's not just vague stuff. It's like they're giving proof they're really tapping into something.
And then the medium says something that just blows my mind. He tells Benjamin he's not only a medium, but also a healer, and that he has 3 spirit guides, a monk, a red Indian, and a priest.
That kind of confirmation can be huge, especially for someone who's still figuring things out. It's like getting a cosmic thumbs up.
And get this, his grandma Lily shows up too, dancing around all happy in spirit form.
Ah, that's lovely. I think it's so comforting to know our loved ones are still around, even if we can't see them.
Yeah. And the reading ends with the medium being all cryptic, telling Benjamin that even more stuff will happen in the spring, but not to worry, because his guides will be with him. It's such a cliffhanger.
I know. Makes you wonder what's going to happen next.
But before we get to that, we have to talk about this book he finds in the church library. Remember how the medium mentioned Doris Stokes?
Yeah. He said Benjamin would get it after reading your book.
Right. Well, check this out. Benjamin goes over to the library, picks up a random book, and guess what the title is? Doris Stokes. Innocent Voices in My Ear.
You're kidding. That's amazing.
I know, right? It's like the universe is literally handing him the answers.
It's like it's all planned out, leading him to what he needs to know when he needs to know it.
And he ends up buying like 4 of her books.
Wow.
It's like he's found someone who gets it, you know, who's been through it all and can show him the way.
Yeah. I think that's so important, especially when we're dealing with stuff that most people don't understand. It's reassuring to know we're not alone.
Totally. Okay, and this is where it gets even weirder. So he gets home from the church service, and guess what?
Oh.
He hears his name called out loud again. No one's there. But this time it's like crystal clear. It seems like his clairaudience, you know, the ability to hear spirits, is getting stronger.
That's wild. It's like all these experiences are amplifying his abilities, making him more sensitive to the spirit world.
Right. And it's like his house is becoming a hotspot for spiritual activity. Do you think some places just have stronger energy than others?
That's a good question. Some people definitely believe that. Like certain locations hold a special energy, maybe because of what happened there in the past, or because of energy lines running through them, or even just the intentions that have been set there. It's possible that as he gets more into this stuff, his own energy is making his house more attractive to spirits, too.
Okay, so we've covered meditation, seeing spirits, astral projection, even mediumship. But now we're getting into the healing side of things. He's supposed to give a reading to a family member, and they end up talking about Reiki, and she suggests he try it.
Ah, and that one little suggestion ends up changing everything for him, right? Introducing him to this whole new healing modality that fits perfectly with his abilities. It's like all these experiences are coming together, shaping his journey.
Exactly. So he books a session with this Reiki master named Olga, who's pretty amazing herself. She discovered her own healing abilities when she was a nurse, and she intuitively put her hand over this crying baby, and it like instantly calmed down.
Oh, wow. I think that shows how healing can just happen. You know, Even if we're not trying to make it happen, it's like we all have this ability to channel energy to help others. Sometimes it just takes that one moment, that spark of compassion, to awaken it.
So he goes to her house for the session, and he's struck by how peaceful it is. It's like he's entered this healing sanctuary.
Yeah. Setting the right atmosphere is so important for energy work. It helps people relax and focus and really creates this space for healing to happen.
And then the session starts, and he feels this intense heat coming from her hands,
Mhm.
even though she's not actually touching him.
That's so common with Reiki. The practitioner becomes this channel for universal energy, and people often feel it as heat or tingling or even a pulsing.
And as they go on, he starts having visions. Beautiful purple colors, flashes of white light, and then a flock of birds flying. Do those visions mean something?
They could be, yeah. A lot of times visions are symbolic of like energy blockages being cleared and healing happening on a deeper level. Purple is often connected to spiritual awareness and change, and white light can represent purification and higher consciousness. And birds, they could symbolize freedom, expansion, rising above challenges.
And Olga is just blown away by his energy. She says his aura is bright gold and super powerful. She even says his soul is the oldest she's ever encountered. It's like he's radiating spiritual light.
It's amazing. I think it shows that we all have this unique energetic blueprint, and all his experiences are just bringing out his incredible spiritual depth and his ability to connect with the unseen world.
I know. It's crazy to think it all started with him just wanting those nightmares to stop. So he finishes the Reiki session and heads home, and guess what?
What?
He hears his name again, called out, like before, but no one's there.
It really does seem like that Reiki session cleared something for him. Like maybe there was a block and now he can hear those spirit voices more clearly.
It makes you think, what other senses could we develop? Could we see auras or like feel energy fields?
Oh, definitely. I mean, in so many spiritual traditions, they believe we have these extra senses just waiting to be unlocked. And yeah, I think Benjamin's story is a great example of that.
Now, throughout the book, he keeps struggling with calling himself a medium, right? Like he hasn't earned it yet. But after this Reiki session, something changes. He seems ready to like own it.
Yeah, I think that's pretty common.
Yeah.
When you're developing these abilities, there's this period of doubt, like, is this real? Am I really doing this? But it seems like that Reiki experience and all the validation he's been getting from Olga and the other mediums has helped him believe in himself more.
And he actually starts trying to heal people. Like he channels energy to help someone with a physical problem, and they say they feel so much better.
I love that. It really shows how connected our minds, bodies, and spirits are.
Mhm.
When we work with energy, we can help people heal on all those levels.
It's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it, right? All the possibilities when we tap into those unseen energies. Do you think, like, anyone can be a healer?
I think we all have that potential in some way, whether it's channeling energy or offering comforting words or just being there for someone who's hurting. At its core, healing is about compassion and connection, right?
So as we get to the end of Benjamin's story, we see him go from being scared and lost to like really empowered and finding his purpose. He's embracing his gifts, connecting with the spirit world, even healing people. It's a pretty incredible journey.
It is, and it shows us how transformative a spiritual awakening can be. Even when life is tough and confusing, there's this deeper wisdom and guidance there if we're open to it.
Meditating medium is such a fascinating look into one person's journey, but it's also like an invitation for all of us to look at our own lives.
Right. Like, what if we could experience those things too? What if we could talk to our loved ones who've passed on or connect with our spirit guides? What if we could heal ourselves and others using energy?
It's like Benjamin's story is saying, hey, go explore, ask those questions, see what's out there.
And if you're feeling that pull, that call to explore your spirituality, don't ignore it. Whether it's medication, energy work, or finding a spiritual community, trust your gut. You never know what amazing things you might discover.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into meditating medium. We hope you got something out of it. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking those big questions, and never stop being curious about the world.